Imagine a world where, just a century ago, mysterious dungeons suddenly popped up, completely changing everything we knew. And get this, these super dangerous dungeons weren't just popping up, they were erupting all over the earth, catching everyone totally off guard. So, to even think about tackling these new threats, adventurers now need special licenses and some seriously intense training. And that's where Serio Academy comes in. It's the premier spot, pulling in all the most talented young adventurers from every corner of the nation. These students, let me tell you, are testing their skills day and night, pushing themselves to the limit within the Academy's super challenging grounds. They're constantly proving themselves, relentlessly diving deep into the perilous school dungeon to show what they're made of. But here's the kicker. On the dreaded 9th floor, a massive, multi-headed beast is just waiting, posing a truly formidable threat to anyone who dares challenge it. You can almost feel the ground shaking as this monster roars in pure fury while adventurers desperately strike. Its immense power absolutely terrifying. But then, Mononobe-san, a seriously powerful student, steps up and unleashes her magic, her gaze absolutely formidable and laser-focused. The other students are cheering, thinking Mononobe-san's won, but hold on, she quickly warns them that the monster is still breathing. And, trust me, it's terrifying. The multi-headed beast actually defies her powerful magic and starts to recover, sending shivers down the spines of the nearby students. Then, this monstrous beast lets out a deafening roar, so loud it actually forces Mononobe-san to recoil in pure shock and pain. But just when you think it's over, suddenly, a student's shoe lands firmly right onto one of the monster's many tails. The immense beast whips its snarling head around, only to find a brand new challenger standing unbelievably calmly right atop its back. This new student, Kenta, looks down with such a fierce gaze, and get this, he actually orders the monster to get out of his way. And then, Kenta delivers just one, single, devastating punch, sending that colossal beast absolutely reeling from the sheer impact. You won't believe it, but the monster goes flying clear across the dungeon floor, scattering terrified students in its chaotic wake. And Kenta? He just coolly adjusts his tie, standing there so casually over the now totally defeated multi-headed beast. Now, the other students are all murmuring, buzzing about Kenta's super arrogant display, even calling him the sun god because of his, well, rude behavior. But then, Kenta turns his sharp gaze towards someone we can't see yet, recognizing them with this incredibly intense expression. Imagine this. Mononobe-san, full-on aggressive, is in Kenta's face, scolding him about his constant tardiness. But Kenta? He just brushes her off, super casual, saying he totally made it in time. Like, really? Mononobe-san is seething, you guys, her face totally red with anger and, yeah, a little embarrassment too. Kenta throws out this super flimsy excuse about helping an old lady, but Mononobe-san is not having it. She insists he take his duties way more seriously. Her eyes just widen in total disbelief, completely stunned by what Kenta says next. You won't believe it. Then, so calmly, Kenta starts detailing all her previous apologies, exposing her gullibility and his long pattern of those exact same excuses. Ouch! She stares, utterly disbelieving, as the realization hits her. She fell for his transparent lies again. And just like that, Mononobe-san explodes in fury, absolutely outraged that Kenta so easily deceived her once more. Now Kenta, sitting defeated on the ground, is lamenting how his own cleverness totally backfired on him. Other students are watching all this unfold, noting Mononobe-san's serious demeanor and Kenta's usual, habitual rudeness. A concerned student kneels to help a classmate, while Mononobe-san just glares, totally fed up with all this chaos. Overwhelmed by the recent monster attack, one student wonders aloud, wait, who are Kenta and Mononobe-san really? A fellow student, absolutely astonished, asks, you really don't know who Mononobe-san and Kenta are? Here's the thing, the impressive second-year student Mononobe Yukihime-san stands with this air of undeniable authority. Mononobe-san, you see, is none other than the school director's granddaughter, and she holds the prestigious title of top honor student. The student looks on in genuine awe, absolutely marveling at Mononobe-san's truly amazing reputation. Another student hushes his friend, then leans in to ask, but who's that mysterious guy in black? And get this, they reveal the man in black is Sinokami Kuroto, rumored to be just as strong as Mononobe-san. Can you believe it? Sinokami Kuroto's sharp gaze and serious expression totally confirm his formidable presence. You can just feel it. But here's the kicker, Kuroto also carries this notorious reputation for being unruly, dangerous, and, yes, totally surrounded by adoring girls. And just like that, Kuroto's piercing gaze snaps right over, instantly silencing anyone who dared to gossip about him. You could hear a pin drop. The terrified students quickly deny everything, shrinking away from his absolutely intimidating presence. But then, BM. Another student suddenly hits the ground, drawing a shocked cry from the crowd. What just happened? That's when Mononobe-san steps in, confronting Kuroto directly and warning him about bullying other students. She's not holding back. Mononobe-san gives Kuroto a serious scolding, asking him why he constantly causes trouble, especially with all that strength. Kuroto just walks away, but Mononobe-san isn't letting him off the hook. She follows right behind him as the students cheer her on to defeat him. Now, these two rivals descend deeper into the dungeon's scary depths, with torches flickering on those ancient stone walls. You can feel the tension. Mononobe-san lets Kuroto know about the truly unexplored and uncleared area lying just beyond the 10th floor. It's serious business. Kuroto, of course, acknowledges her warning, knowing full well that many upperclassmen have already thrown in the towel. He starts speculating about the powerful monsters or clever traps that are probably keeping the truth of those lower levels a total secret. What could be down there? Mononobe-san watches Kuroto, noticing his focused determination, and you can see a subtle grin starting to spread across her face. She muses that Kuroto, despite all his complaining, seems pretty motivated, though, let's be real, not nearly as much as she is. Mononobe-san then confidently declares her own unparalleled motivation, which, naturally, gets an annoyed huff from Kuroto. Classic. She explains the dungeon's huge significance, revealing it's been protected by her family for generations and generations. Talk about history. And get this, she reveals her lifelong wish to conquer the dungeon completely, which, of course, draws a totally sarcastic remark from Kuroto. Mononobe-san then challenges Kuroto, asking him why he's even descending into these depths if his motivations are so wildly different. Kuroto, being Kuroto, bluntly states his goal is simply the school's reward money for conquering the dungeon. Straight to the point. Mononobe-san is completely surprised by his mercenary motive, but Kuroto insists that money, and only money, grants ultimate freedom. You can see Mononobe-san looking pretty dismayed, realizing the truly vast difference in their motivations. Now, reaching the 10th floor, they stand right before those unexplored depths, ready to challenge the great unknown. Will they make it? Oh my gosh, Mononobe-san just cries out, completely blindsided by this super thick miasma that boom, suddenly engulfs the 10th floor. And then, trust me, a blinding light just erupts right behind them, completely sealing off the entrance they just came through. Mononobe-san quickly points to a specific spot, and Kuroto's face just drops as he realizes they're totally sealed in now. Right in front of them, there's this massive dragon statue, clutching a mysterious sign with, you guessed it, super cryptic instructions. And get this, the sign reveals the most unexpected condition. They literally cannot leave this room unless they are holding hands. What? You can just see Kuroto and Mononobe-san staring in pure disbelief, totally bewildered by this absolutely bizarre requirement. Kuroto is absolutely raging against this absurd condition, while Mononobe-san, well, she just admits she has no idea what they're supposed to do. Completely ignoring the riddle, Kuroto just unleashes this powerful flare burst, attack straight at that sealed exit. His fiery assault crashes against the barrier, but here's the kicker. The magic just deflects it, not even a scratch. Mononobe-san quickly observes that brute force is totally useless here. They absolutely have to trigger the room's specific mechanism. Mononobe-san just stares at that sign, with that totally absurd condition practically glaring right back at her. Kuroto, for his part, falls completely silent, realizing that this bizarre condition is definitely no mere prank. So, Mononobe-san explains that dungeons actually harvest human emotions by transforming to match their deepest desires. Who knew? Which makes her wonder, could this dungeon's current form be specifically tailored to the students' collective wishes? Kuroto actually concedes that the dungeon transforming based on student desires is a very distinct possibility. And then, Mononobe-san just blushes this fiery crimson, shouting that the whole situation is utterly, totally indecent. She yells that improper relationships between students are, like, strictly forbidden by school rules. Can you believe it? But Kuroto, ever so calmly, points out that they would simply be holding hands, and, well, nothing more. So Kuroto just extends his hand to Mononobe-san, urging her to just get it over with already. Mononobe-san nervously agrees, but if you look closely, you can totally see her profound inner turmoil bubbling just beneath the surface. Oh my gosh, Mononobe-san totally panics, and guess what? she accidentally lets loose this huge, divine punishment attack right at Kuroto. Kuroto is absolutely fuming, demanding to know what just happened. I mean, her special move almost completely wiped him out. You can practically see Kuroto's patience draining away. He just lets out this huge sigh, totally exasperated with Mononobe-san's crazy antics. So Kuroto, arms crossed, looks at her and asks, "Seriously, Mononobe-san, do you really dislike the idea of holding my hand that much?" And Mononobe-san, all flustered, admits she's just incredibly nervous, confessing she's never, ever held a boy's hand before. Can you imagine? Her face just goes crimson, a total giveaway to her super sheltered life as a proper young lady. Kuroto takes a beat, letting her words sink in, and suddenly, a whole new understanding dawns on him. Get this, he realizes the dungeon is actually mirroring Mononobe-san's secret wish for a rom-com, and he's the unsuspecting male lead. Then, Mononobe-san totally catches Kuroto off guard, blurting out that she doesn't dislike him at all. Kuroto's completely flustered by her directness, but Mononobe-san just keeps going, praising him as someone truly worthy of respect. You can see Mononobe-san's eyes starting to well up as she gets ready to explain exactly why she holds Kuroto in such incredibly high regard. She's remembering this moment when Kuroto genuinely helped a lost child, even though he'd made up some excuse earlier. Kuroto's totally demanding to know how she found out about his secret good deeds, but Mononobe-san just playfully shrugs, claiming it was pure coincidence. She looks down, her hands clasped so nervously, getting ready to share this much deeper, really personal concern. And she's looking at her own hands, noticing how rough they are, a clear sign of all that diligent, solitary training she's been doing. So she voices this insecurity, right? She thinks Kuroto would find her hard-trained hands just way too rough to hold. Kuroto quickly reassures her that her hands are absolutely not an issue, but she's completely stunned. How did he know about her secret training? Kuroto just casually drops the bomb. He found out about her training because their secret spots for practice just happened to overlap. What a twist. Kuroto, being super kind, explains that her hands aren't rough at all. Instead, they're a testament to her incredible dedication and hard work. Mononobe-san is absolutely speechless, totally overwhelmed by Kuroto's unexpected sincerity, leaving him completely flustered and demanding an answer. Oh, but Mononobe-san totally calls him out. She points out Kuroto was blushing earlier too, and trust me, he is not ready for this. Kuroto tries his best to play it cool, but his face is still totally flushed from her incredibly blunt observation. Seriously, both of them are just a mess of blushing and nervous energy right now, can you feel it? And then, the dungeon's voice chimes in, insisting they try that handshake one more time before it's time to call it a day. So, they both hesitantly reach out, inching closer and closer for that totally anticipated touch. Mononobe-san's face is just beet red as she, bravely holds out her hand for him. And Kuroto, equally flustered, he just steels himself and reaches out to meet her hand. But get this, instead of a proper handshake, Mononobe-san's finger just tentatively pokes his palm. Kuroto is completely baffled by this weird little poke, totally unprepared for her nervous energy. He asks what that was all about, but she just desperately begs for a little more time to mentally prepare herself. Kuroto starts scolding himself, telling his flustered brain to get it together after that super unexpected touch. He can't stop thinking about Mononobe-san's hand, noticing how surprisingly soft it was, despite all her training. He's starting to question his own confidence, realizing he totally underestimated just how intimate holding hands could be. Meanwhile, Mononobe-san is panicking inside, admitting to herself that she honestly hasn't held hands with anyone in years. And then, Mononobe-san points out Kuroto's super bright red ears, exposing his embarrassment even though he's trying to hide it. Kuroto tries to hold back a laugh, but he just can't keep his composure when he sees his own flustered reaction. Mononobe-san confronts him, asking if he's not embarrassed too, and he totally flinches away. She playfully calls him out, accusing him of pretending to be calm and pointing out all the obvious signs he's totally distressed. Kuroto just groans, his face completely on fire as Mononobe-san's observations push him even deeper into embarrassment. He finally admits it, he just can't control his own intense reactions when he's around Mononobe-san. Wait, Kuroto just blurts out that Mononobe-san's hand was actually super soft, and it totally changes how he sees her. And just like that, Mononobe-san's face explodes with a blush, completely blindsided by Kuroto's unexpected words. Seriously, she can barely wrap her head around what he's saying. When did her actions even lead to this? Mononobe-san totally hides her face, right? She's just mortified by how intimate this conversation suddenly got. But Kuroto's watching her and he's thinking, could her embarrassment actually be a sign that she likes him back? Then, peeking through her fingers, Mononobe-san calls Kuroto out, saying he's just plain weird for thinking out loud like that. Even though she says that, you can see a little flicker of doubt in her eyes. She's definitely processing that confession. And here they are, standing in front of this dungeon monster, with their shared awkwardness somehow making them feel closer. Kuroto's really steeling himself now, hoping this new understanding means he can finally grab her hand like he wants to. Mononobe-san's blush just gets deeper as she imagines holding hands with Sino Kamikuin. Is this a new feeling blooming? Mononobe-san's hand kind of hovers over Kuroto's, right? Still super hesitant to actually go for the handhold. Then, her fingers pull back, fighting that urge to connect with his palm. And just like that, Mononobe-san snatches her hand away completely, leaving Kuroto's palm feeling totally empty. Talk about awkward. Both Kuroto and Mononobe-san are blushing so hard, stuck in this silent moment. But then a sudden, sharp sound makes them both jump, their eyes going wide with shock. They both recoil super fast as that dungeon monster right beside them suddenly starts to wake up. The crystal dungeon monster explodes out of its sleep, unleashing this absolutely deafening roar. And then a mysterious glowing tablet just appears on the floor, making Kuroto wonder why the monster even moved. This tablet reveals a cursed contract. They have to hold hands to escape in just 10 minutes. Mononobe-san looks over at Kuroto, a worried expression on her face, realizing just how much trouble they're in as the timer starts ticking down. 10 minutes, and they're frozen in place. Can Kuroto and Mononobe break through this paralyzing silence? And up above, that giant crystal dragon is getting so impatient. Can you feel its rage? Oh no, dark energy is building in its mouth. Is it about to just erase them? Whoa. It unleashes this insane fire blast, just tearing the whole floor apart. Just look at that. Nothing but scorched earth where that destructive power ripped through. But then, a classmate suddenly jumps in, casting this incredible freezing spell. Listen to that shriek. The dragon's totally trapped, its massive limbs locked in ice. She's screaming at them, go. Now. Before this magic breaks. Kuroto's gritting his teeth, right? He is not letting their only shot at survival just vanish. He's reaching out, ready to just yank her hand into his as those last seconds vanish. Kuroto's gathering all his magic into his fist, getting ready to hit that frozen beast with everything he's got. He slams his fiery fist right into the monster and the ground just shatters in this massive explosion. Seriously, the force of that blast? It completely obliterates the creature and rips the whole chamber apart. And look at him, standing there in the smoke, just casually patting out the flames on his hand. Mononobe's just staring, wide-eyed. His power, his mana control, it's way beyond any normal student, isn't it? But then her face falls, and she snaps her fingers, totally annoyed by how reckless he was. And of course, the ceiling starts raining down rubble, threatening to bury them both. She's immediately on him, telling him off for using way too much power and causing all this destruction. He tries to calm her down, saying she was essential, and she just can't help but brag about how vital she is. So the path is finally clear, but what kind of terrifying new challenges are waiting for them deeper inside? So, Kuroto and Mononobe are just gonna waltz right past that insane dungeon gauntlet? Lucky them, right? But Mononobe slips on some loose rocks, and Kuroto is totally caught off guard. She's falling, screaming, reaching out desperately to stop herself. And she crashes right into Kuroto, sending them both tumbling down in a very close embrace. Suddenly, everything goes quiet. Can you imagine? They're just holding hands, accidentally. And just like that, the panic hits. They yank their hands away, mortified. Mononobe is furious, accusing him of grabbing her, while Kuroto is scrambling to explain it was a total accident. Their eyes meet for a split second, pure, awkward embarrassment hanging in the air. They quickly turn away, faces burning, totally unwilling to admit there was any kind of spark. As they squabble their way deeper into that dark pit, they have no idea what terrifying trap is lurking just ahead. Meanwhile, back at school, the classroom is absolutely buzzing with whispers as Mononobe marches right up to Kuroto's desk. She lays down the law, telling him he better be on time for their next dungeon dive. Kuroto just yawns. He totally blows off her demands, and you can just feel her irritation growing. Their classmates are watching this whole fight, totally convinced these two rivals will never get along. Outside the classroom, the rest of the academy students are gathering, talking about their next big hurdle. And the whispers are all about the legendary 10th floor, a place so dangerous even the strongest warriors turned tail and ran. But then, this super smug upperclassman, Makeout, pipes up, bragging that his data will have him conquering it no problem. The whole crowd is left wondering, can this confident guy actually back up that huge claim? When people start comparing his power to Mononobe's, she practically grinds her teeth to dust in pure frustration. And Mononobe just storms off, absolutely sick of being the measuring stick for everyone's dungeon power. Makeout sees his chance. He's totally going to blow Mononobe out of the water and snatch that top spot. But whoa. Suddenly, a giant werewolf monster crashes the party, and you can just feel the students' panic spike. In a flash, Mononobe's blade is out, and Kuroto's charging up a fiery fist. They're going in together. And BM. Their super combo attack hits with this incredible force, just vaporizing the beast in one go. Mononobe just casually puts her sword away, like, yeah, we only let one stray get past us. Meanwhile, Makeout is just frozen on the ground, staring at the smoking remains of what they just obliterated. That arrogant upperclassman? He's suddenly breaking out in a cold sweat, realizing just how powerful these two really are. But he snaps back fast, right? He plays it cool and asks Mononobe if she already bailed on her raid. He even throws in a sneer, asking if she got scared and ran from the dungeon's 10th floor. But here's the twist that shocks everyone. Both rivals admit that clearing the deep zone is just impossible for them right now. So Mononobe and Kuroto decide, you know what? Let's just call it a day and try again tomorrow. And the crowd? They're just watching in absolute stunned silence as the Academy's strongest duo actually admits defeat. Suddenly, this wave of panic hits the other students. They're starting to realize just how dangerous this is going to be. Totally freaked out by the missing data, Makeout abandons his classmates and bolts, just trying to save himself. The students left behind are just standing there, completely floored by their leader's sudden, cowardly vanishing act. Meanwhile, someone watching quietly? They're smiling, realizing that even the unbeatable prodigies are hitting a wall. The very next day, Kuroto and Mononobe are back, ready to tackle that dreaded 10th floor of the dungeon. After 100 werewolves go down, they finally face this massive gatekeeper guarding a mysterious stone tablet. And get this, the tablet lays out this super weird rule: they can't move on unless they call out each other's names. Now, for two rivals who can barely stand the sight of each other, could this simple task actually be impossible? Kuroto hardens his resolve, ready to finally say his rival's first name out loud. Mononobe squeezes her eyes shut, forcing out a shaky, stuttered version of Kuroto's name. But the massive gatekeeper buzzes in disapproval, totally rejecting their awkward, incomplete attempts. Kuroto shrugs off the failure, acting like this embarrassing trial is no big deal at all. An outraged Mononobe calls him out, reminding him that he was just as embarrassed yesterday. Seriously, just 24 hours ago, both these elite prodigies were blushing, stuttering messes. To her absolute disbelief, Kuroto sticks out his tongue, revealing a glowing magical crust. Mononobe stares in sheer horror as she finally realizes what her rival has actually done. He proudly explains he spent all night developing a spell to physically force his tongue to speak. He smugly offers to cast this cheat code spell on her, but can she swallow her pride to bypass the trial? Mononobe flatly rejects Kuroto's cheat code, determined to clear this trial using her own pride. The two rivals steel themselves, though the sheer awkwardness of this trial is really weighing on them. Suddenly, a massive wooden chest drops from above, granting them an item for this trial. Kuroto carefully inspects the trunk from a distance, searching for any hidden magical traps. But before he can finish his analysis, Mononobe boldly marches straight toward the suspicious chest. She throws the lid wide open, completely ignoring the danger of a potential trap. Kuroto furiously lectures her for being reckless, but she confidently relies on her sharp intuition. His harsh words easily deflate her confidence, leaving her pouting under his relentless scolding. When Mononobe looks inside the chest, her eyes widen in absolute disbelief at the treasure. Resting inside is a childish profile notebook, but how can this toy possibly help them bypass the dungeon's barrier? Can you believe it? Mononobe pulls out a sparkly children's notebook from a dungeon chest. Seriously, you'd expect rare herbs or powerful potions, right? Kuroto's totally losing it as the dungeon goes from epic fantasy to this. And Mononobe drops a bomb. This silly toy is a divine test to make them use first names. She lays out her reasoning, and trust me, Kuroto is utterly bamboozled. With a huge grin, Mononobe asks her rival to fill out this colorful notebook with her. Her pen hovers, ready to spill her deepest childhood secrets onto the page. But while she remembers happy school days, Kuroto's thinking about his own painful past. Then, as the pen finally touches paper, this heavy silence drops between them. Before she was an elite prodigy, a young, lonely Mononobe watched her classmates from the sidelines. Tears well up as she remembers just how much she wanted to share her profile with someone. Kuroto freaks out seeing her cry, instantly regretting shattering her childhood dream. Trying to fix it, Kuroto blurts out a lie. He always wanted to fill one out too. Mononobe lets out a little giggle, her sadness melting away at his clumsy kindness. So these rivals sit down, but Kuroto's totally stuck, unsure what to even write. Once their sheets are finally done, they agree to reveal their answers together on the count of 3. Kuroto reveals his basic sheet, a messy doodle and a firm nope on his future plans. Then Mononobe shows off her drawing, her big dream, eating a giant sweet treat. Mononobe's just beaming, absolutely thrilled to finally have this normal childhood moment. Kuroto acts all cool, but little do they know, their bonding moment is about to get intensely tested. So, Mononobe spots Kuroto's grandma's cat and just has to ask its name, right? And you won't believe the name Kuroto drops. Seriously, Mononobe's actually impressed by his sophisticated taste? But Kuroto isn't done yet, oh no. He throws it right back at her, pointing out her own obsession with those old-school sweet rice cakes. And with a little smirk, he declares, those are perfect with some fancy green tea, adding to the sass. Mononobe can't help but tease him back, telling him he sounds exactly like a sweet old grandma. Meanwhile, Kuroto's just watching her, completely blown away by how much fun she's having with this simple little game. Mononobe admits, this whole back and forth isn't so bad, even if Kuroto was being super vague. But just as things are getting cozy a loud chime echoes, completely shattering their peaceful vibe. And get this, to their absolute shock, a secret door swings open right next to this stone statue. Kuroto freezes, suddenly terrified, realizing his silly words might have just activated a super deadly trap. Mononobe just stares, completely speechless, trying to figure out the bizarre logic of this dungeon. Then Kuroto realizes a silly pun opened the door, and he's like, peace out, heading home. But Mononobe? She's not having it. She grabs him, absolutely fuming at his lazy attitude, and refuses to let him go. She demands he stay and address her properly, but Kuroto? He just wants to go to sleep, for real. Mononobe takes a massive breath, clearly struggling to get past this super embarrassing moment. Her face is bright red, but she finally builds up the courage to say Kuroto's name. And honestly, that unexpected honorific totally blindsides Kuroto, freezing him right in his tracks. Then this super awkward, heart-pounding silence falls between them as their eyes meet. Mononobe just grins, totally triumphant, so proud of herself for conquering that embarrassing challenge. Kuroto, trying desperately to hide how much that cute little gesture got to him, just grumbles a dismissive reply. So, the trial is over and Kuroto's had enough. Time to pack it up and head home, right? And Mononobe just has to rub it in, bragging that beating him without magic proves she's totally the best. Can you believe Kuroto? He's just staring back, absolutely fuming at her ridiculous claim. But he fires back, saying he can totally say her name without any magic, no sweat. Mononobe's like, oh yeah? Prove it, and BM. Instantly, it's on. A full-on, childish shouting match. Their loud, silly argument is echoing all over the schoolyard, and guess what? The sun's going down fast. Mononobe's really struggling to get his name out, and Kuroto's reminding her that time is ticking away. But then, W-choi. A sudden shout from the bushes makes them freeze right in their tracks. And just like that, this whole crazy scene cuts away, teasing us with what's coming next. So, who are these new faces, and how are they about to shake up Kuroto and Mononobe's dungeon crawl? Then, this mysterious person steps right into view, talking to us like they've known us forever. She introduces her dungeon channel with a huge smile, promising us that total chaos is coming soon. Now, our duo arrives at the healing spring, way down on the 5th floor of the dungeon. They decide to chill here for a bit, watching a super popular streamer broadcasting live from the dungeon depths. And look, it's Karara Konguin, flashing a huge grin for her viewers while she's live streaming her dungeon run. Meanwhile, Kuroto and his companion are glued to the screen, their eyes wide with confusion. Kuroto admits he actually watches strong players like her to get some tips for his own training, But then he notices something super weird. She's wearing their school uniform on camera. Kuroto is actually stunned. How does she not recognize the most famous dungeon streamer around? And the stream totally shows off how popular Karara is, plus all her amazing, high-tech gear. And you can just imagine the chat going wild, right? Everyone's blowing up about the class rep totally calling Kirara out for streaming. Kuroto's just like, yeah, not really my thing, trying his best to play it cool about this whole digital idol thing. But then, plot twist. His buddy suddenly remembers something super important, and Kuroto's just, huh? Meanwhile, Kirara's totally glowing for her fans, hyping up this amazing live stream with a huge surprise guest. And get this, she proudly introduces Kuroto and his partner, calling them the absolute strongest students in the whole academy. Kuroto and the girl? They're just staring at the screen, completely blindsided by all the sudden attention. Like, wait, what? They keep trekking through those creepy dungeon halls, totally clueless that they're already digital entertainment. Kuroto can't believe she actually went through with this, right? He's genuinely surprised she agreed to such a public spectacle. But she just flashes this confident grin, totally brushing off his worries, saying she owes it to her classmate. Easy peasy. Kuroto, though, he's gotta press her. He's warning her, like, hey, are we forgetting something super crucial here? She just turns back with this completely blank look, completely missing the gravity of his serious warning. Oops. Kuroto lets out this huge sigh, already dreading that the next dungeon trial is gonna force them into even more awkward closeness. And that embarrassing realization hits them both like a ton of bricks. They're so not ready for this. Kuroto is officially panicking now. Their messy dungeon run? It's all going public. He's demanding to know why she's being so intimate with her tone. What's going on here? And then she suddenly has this light bulb moment, remembering her whole plan to use this specific name as a milestone. She spills the tea, explaining that using his name is actually a symbol of her own personal growth. So sweet. But Kuroto warns her, seriously, this kind of public closeness? It's gonna cause a lot of unwanted rumors. She just smiles, so genuinely happy to have finally found a real friend in Kuroto. Kuroto's worried she's being way too casual about all this, but she's just blissfully unaware of the chaos to come. Okay? So Kuroto's trying so hard to play it cool, but you can totally see he's flustered, right? But she's just not having it. She insists he's gotta use her real name, no more protests allowed. And Kirara? She totally teases him, like, come on, it's been ages since you called me that. And someone's filming this whole awkward moment, broadcasting their dynamic to everyone online. Meanwhile, the rival streamer is fuming, glaring because these two are totally stealing her thunder at the academy. She's watching them struggle, just loving it and plotting how to expose their total lack of skill to her own fans. Suddenly, the mood gets heavy as they hit the dungeon's 10th floor, stepping into this seriously dangerous, deeper chamber. And this huge, imposing metal golem just drops into their path, holding up a sign with a weird warning. Kirara immediately goes live, telling all her viewers, guys, this metal golem? It's one of the toughest enemies out there. She's realizing even someone as strong as Mononobe might have a real hard time with this mechanical beast. Then, the golem reveals this crazy hidden mechanic, saying there's a specific trick to get past it. Kuroto and Kirara are just staring at the sign, like, what in the world kind of bizarre test is this? Kirara's jaw is on the floor, honestly. This situation is spiraling way beyond anything she ever imagined. While she's freaking out, Kuroto's just super calm, analyzing this whole crazy situation. Then roar. This giant mechanical golem lets out this deafening sound, making it crystal clear it means business. Kirara totally snaps at Kuroto to shut up, feeling the pressure just cranking up. But then, like that, whoosh. A defensive barrier just appears, intercepting the golem's crushing metal blow. Kirara's eyes go super wide, completely stunned by this sudden burst of power. She did not see that coming. She grudgingly admits Kuroto's earth magic is pretty amazing, though she hates to say he's actually useful. And just like that, Kirara spins back to her audience, yelling, quick, let's take a timeout, to process this wild encounter. But what's with the golem's weird gestures? They're totally confused by its taunts. And this cryptic sign? It reveals an absolutely ridiculous dungeon rule that leaves them both scratching their heads. Seriously, even Kirara and Kuroto are totally baffled by this bizarre, cryptic sign. The air gets thick, and you can just feel them realizing the real meaning of this challenge. The spectators are watching in pure shock. Can you believe this totally average guy actually cleared the mission? Kirara and Kuroto are at each other's throats, but is their bickering hiding something more? Kuroto's just observing everything with that intense, analytical gaze, trying to find the hidden truth. He's thinking about his partner. Sure, he might not be flashy, but trust me, he gets things done. And then it hits them. The reality of their situation completely stuns everyone watching. Wait, is Karara blushing. She's starting to suspect a romance is brewing between them. Suddenly, this intense dungeon crawl has turned into a full-blown romantic spectacle for the audience. Karara is desperately trying to shut down those rumors, but the dungeon's weird influence just keeps everyone guessing. She's dreaming big, folks. Fame, fortune, and her rival's downfall, totally wallowing in dramatic defeat. But she snaps back to reality, absolutely determined to drag Kuroto into her spotlight no matter what. Meanwhile, Kuroto's completely focused on the dungeon, barely even noticing Karara frantically waving her camera around. He's demanding they finish the job, but can Karara even keep up with his relentless pace? Karara's practically begging for a break as these bizarre dungeon mechanics threaten to spill all their secrets. And just like that, her stream goes live again, broadcasting all this chaos to an audience dying for some juicy gossip. Karara is totally panicking. What if her audience figures out this secret romance she never wanted? They're just standing there in total silence, and you can feel the tension between them crackling. Okay, so Kuroto's about to spill his heart, but Karara is scrambling to shut him down, like right now. He's denying everything, but trust me, that icy expression just makes everyone more suspicious. Whoa, look at that golem. It just explodes in a flash, and you know something big is about to happen. And then, this mysterious orb shoots up into the sky, grabbing everyone's attention. What is that thing? Karara is just staring, totally confused, as this weird thing floats down right towards them. Bam! It hits Karara right on the head, leaving her completely stunned and wondering what just happened. Kuroto, meanwhile, is totally unbothered, calling it indecent and already looking for his next move. Karara's face is burning with frustration, realizing she totally freaked out for absolutely no reason. But the golem? It's still standing, its body is cracked, but its defenses are totally holding strong. Wait a minute, they spot a glowing core. This monster isn't done yet, not by a long shot. Kuroto is demanding to know why the dungeon isn't cleared yet, even after everything they've done. Suddenly, Kuroto has this huge realization, but the truth is so heavy, he can barely speak. Karara's looking at everyone, completely bewildered, like, what is going on? Tell me. Kuroto points to the screen, his voice chillingly calm as he tells Karara, you're part of the count. Karara absolutely loses it, her face turning beet red from this sudden, wild accusation. She fires back, insisting she has no clue and begging them to stop pulling her into this mess. But Kuroto just brushes off her freakout, saying it's no big deal and questioning her whole vibe. He tells the others not to push Karara, his gaze totally fixed on the mission ahead. Kuroto brings up their last confession, totally baffled why she's so stressed out now. He warns them, the dungeon shield is failing. We need to reset positions like yesterday. Okay, so Karara steps forward, putting her foot down and telling Kuroto, don't you dare make decisions for me anymore. And wow, his words really hit her hard, right? Karara's totally struggling to even process what she's feeling. You see the tears just streaming down her face as she remembers her first love, the one who protected her from all those bullies. Then, BM. A blinding strike suddenly explodes, just shattering that massive golem into a million tiny pieces. And the digital feed? It's exploding with comments. Everyone's just stunned by the insane power of that move. So, the whole party is standing there in all the debris, finally getting a moment to breathe after that absolutely brutal battle. They're all leaning on each other, completely wiped out from the dungeon's non-stop, energy-draining trials. Kuroto's baffled, though. He's like, how did one strike take down that giant golem? What about our gear? The group's kind of bummed, though, right? They're realizing they barely got any screen time this round, totally overshadowed. But then, out of nowhere, this sharp voice cuts through the air, demanding everyone's attention, leaving them totally confused. It's Makeout Saikiro, the head of the disciplinary committee, and he's looming over them, absolutely fuming about them being late. He points a finger right at them, declaring, this dangerous dungeon streaming ends right now. Saikiro demands to know why Karara is even involved, but she's not having any of his accusations, no way. Karara is desperately trying to just get out of this whole situation, begging not to be dragged into his mess. And Saikiro? He just mocks her, saying she was way more serious back when she was just a little kid. The group is just watching, totally confused, as all their private secrets are suddenly just laid bare for everyone to see. Kuroto's got this look like kindergarten. He's totally musing on that, leaving everyone wondering what's going on. Meanwhile, the school cafeteria is buzzing, students just going about their normal, everyday routines. Suddenly, Kuroto finds himself cornered by this girl, and she's asking him what's really bothering him. And then she mentions a friend who got banned from the dungeon. Her voice is actually trembling a little bit. And then, this girl just pops up with lunch, singing this super cheerful tune that totally throws everyone off guard. She beams at Kuroto, just casually asking if he wants to share a meal right then and there. But Kuroto? He's trying to wave her off, insisting there are tons of other empty seats around. She totally ignores him though, saying the food's gonna get cold if she keeps looking for a spot. So Kuroto just sighs, defeated, telling her to sit wherever she likes just to make her stop talking. And suddenly, the whole cafeteria is buzzing, right? Everyone's watching them, totally curious about what's going on. You can just feel the whispers filling the room, wondering if maybe something happened between those two in the dungeon. Honestly, Kuroto just sighs, completely worn out by the non-stop social drama at the academy. He finally confronts her, demanding she leave him alone before even more crazy rumors start spreading. But she just completely ignores his warning, calmly munching on her food while asking about these bizarre rumors. Kuroto tries to play it cool, saying people are already thinking they're way too close. He admits, though, they're close enough to actually use each other's first names. And she totally teases him about that one time he actually did call her by her name. Kuroto just snaps back, practically begging her to just shut up already. She just fixes her hair, completely unbothered by his outburst, and keeps right on with her meal. Kuroto buries his face in his hands, trying so hard to just tune out her humming and all the gossip. He confesses that ever since that day, he can't even look Mononobe in the eye. Kuroto's shaking his head violently, desperate to just purge these super awkward thoughts from his mind. He risks a quick glance, only to find the tension is so thick you could practically cut it with a knife. Kuroto forces himself to focus on his lunch, chanting to himself that conquering the dungeon is his only priority. So, Kuroto just keeps shoveling food into his mouth, desperately trying to ignore the suffocating tension building up in the cafeteria. But she's not letting him off that easy, teasing him for being way too formal and still using her last name. She stares right back at him, and trust me, her gaze cuts straight through his fragile little defenses. She pushes him even further, demanding he use her first name until he's completely backed into a corner. Finally, the social pressure gets to be too much, and Kuroto snaps, blurting out her first name for everyone to hear. Oh, and she blushes furiously, suddenly realizing just how deeply his words actually hit her heart. Kuroto can only glare, struggling to lock down his chaotic thoughts while the entire cafeteria explodes with gossip. Fast forward to the dungeon, where Kuroto is completely baffled by a seriously bizarre sign hidden deep inside. Here they are, standing right in front of a mysterious altar on the 10th floor of the dungeon. And get this, the sign warns that lying to the dragon will unleash a truly terrible calamity upon them. Kuroto stares up at the massive dragon statue, wondering what kind of nightmare calamity they're actually facing. Even Mononobe can't ignore it, pointing out how incredibly serious the warning carved into the stone actually is. Kuroto asks the big question out loud, could a penalty like this really mean getting banned forever? Mononobe has to agree getting banned would completely ruin their hard-earned path as adventurers. Sure, dungeons are a goldmine, but they also hold the ultimate power to banish anyone they want at any second. It's a brutal system, designed specifically to lock out any unwanted intruders and keep the dungeon safe. Cross those sacred lines, and the dungeon's entry prohibition system will instantly strike you down. The very walls warn that any rule-breaking or destruction triggers an immediate, permanent ban. No second chances. Kuroto knows that getting banned right now would instantly kill his dream career as an elite student adventurer. Terrified of that happening, Kuroto realizes he has absolutely no choice but to push forward. Can he pull it off? Staring at that creepy, ominous altar, Kuroto can't shake the feeling that something is horribly wrong. But does Mononobe care? She completely ignores his hesitation, marching right up with a bright, confident smile. Before she can even blink, the stone dragon snaps its jaws shut, clamping down hard on Mononobe's hand. Kuroto instantly screams in frustration, berating her for acting so recklessly before even thinking about the trap. But Mononobe doesn't even flinch, insisting she'll be totally fine as long as she doesn't tell a single lie. Still, she can't help but wonder why on earth is a classic Italian icon like the Mouth of Truth sitting in this dungeon. Kuroto points out that this dungeon feeds on human knowledge and emotion, leaving them both trapped in uncertainty. And that's when the dungeon's mysterious profile book reveals exactly why it knows their deepest, darkest secrets. Mononobe decides they have to face this challenge head-on, urging Kuroto to take a step back. She blushes bright red, taking a deep breath as she prepares to confess her hidden truth to the statue. Her big confession? She admits her only real hobby is buying snacks and eating them on her way home. A heavy, awkward silence hangs in the air as the stone dragon reacts to her surprisingly mundane confession. Kuroto just stares in absolute disbelief, wondering if she seriously just gave that as her deepest secret. Mononobe just laughs off his judgment, arguing that her total lack of self-control is a very real fact. She practically goes into a trance dreaming of donuts, scones, and apple pies, listing all her favorite sugary temptations. Kuroto sighs, pointing out that calling such a trivial habit a secret is a massive stretch, to say the least. Suddenly, the stone dragon chimes aloud, signaling that her goofy honesty actually passed the test. Mononobe beams with triumph, celebrating her successful confession while Kuroto watches in total, utter confusion. She proudly crosses her arms, convinced that bearing her soul has given her the ultimate upper hand. Then, Mononobe turns to Kuroto with a smirk, telling him it is finally his turn to face the music. Kuroto actually smirks, thinking that if mundane secrets are all it takes, this trial is going to be an absolute breeze. He steps right up to the stone dragon, confidently confessing that he actually prefers cats over dogs. But oh, bad move. A sharp bolt of electricity suddenly zaps his hand, sending him reeling in pure agony. Before he can even recover, the stone dragon's jaws clamp down mercilessly on his hand, ripping a pain scream right out of him. Clutching his throbbing hand, Kuroto yells out, demanding to know what on earth is wrong with this crazy trap. Mononobe just watches the epic fail, pointing out that his cheap little secret clearly wasn't enough to satisfy the dungeon. She sighs, asking if his cat, Sakatoba, is even doing okay, while the tension in the air just keeps rising. Meanwhile, his pampered cat Sakatoba is just chilling at home, happily munching on dried salmon jerky in total comfort. Kuroto explains he had to stay up all night keeping the needy kitty company because she wouldn't stop meowing. Watching him fail, Mononobe tells Kuroto he needs to step it up and try verifying his secret all over again. Now Kuroto hesitates. Is he really about to reveal his deepest, most embarrassing secret to her? He confesses that he once tried streaming live from a dungeon, but he completely failed to get any views. He ended up deleting his account because this one super creepy viewer kept spamming him with massive donations. Mononobe's ears perk up instantly, sensing she's about to get some seriously juicy gossip. But nope. The statue bites down hard again, rejecting his confession and leaving him in absolute agony. Kuroto screams at the statue, demanding to know why it's rejecting his actual, honest-to-God truth. Mononobe asks if he's ever told another soul, forcing him to face his ultimate shame. That's when Kuroto remembers venting his absolute heart out to his cat, Sakatoba. He realizes that spilling his most heavily guarded secret might actually be the only way to survive this test. Kuroto theorizes that this dungeon is actively digging deep, scanning their most private, buried memories. Mononobe suddenly realizes that this creepy dungeon somehow knows every single private chat he's had with his pet. She leans in close, practically smelling the juicy secret that's about to be exposed. But Kuroto quickly shuts her down, warning her that the truth is just too dangerous to share. Mononobe isn't giving up that easily, begging him to just spill the magic already. Suddenly, a chilling, haunting voice echoes right inside Kuroto's head, calling his name. He freezes in his tracks. There is absolutely no ignoring this creepy summon from the deep. Mononobe instantly catches his sudden change in vibe and asks him if something's wrong. Kuroto brushes it off fast, insisting that whatever he just heard was absolutely nothing. She stares right back at him, her eyes searching for any tiny hint of the truth. He tightly clenches his fist, doing everything he can to keep his cool under her intense gaze. Finally, she takes a step back, letting him know she'll wait while he finishes up his business. Kuroto tries to play it cool, but he can't help but wonder if she's actually fine with not knowing. Mononobe just flashes a warm smile, reassuring him that his silence is totally fine by her. Instead, she playfully demands he buy her a meat bun to make up for keeping secrets. Kuroto just watches her walk off, completely stunned by how casually she just played that. A blush creeps onto his face as he realizes this girl is way more unpredictable than he ever imagined. But wait, deep in the shadows, a single eye is watching their every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Kuroto slowly reaches out, his hand trembling as he prepares to face the massive stone guardian. He takes one deep, shaky breath, desperately trying to steady the nerves rattling his very soul. Standing right before the massive slab, Kuroto finally begins to confess his darkest, most painful regret. He confesses to a terrible, unforgivable sin against his own little sister, something he can never, ever take back. From afar, Mononobe watches in horror as the very floor of the dungeon begins to churn and split apart. Suddenly, the Guardian's stone face twists into a terrifying expression of pure, wrathful judgment. It screams that he's lying, accusing him of deceiving the dungeon not once, but 3 whole times. With a deafening roar, the Guardian unleashes a terrifying calamity that threatens to swallow them both alive. Kuroto can only stare in utter shock. How could the dungeon reject his honest confession like this? He screams that he told the truth, but as the walls start collapsing, you have to wonder, what is his real secret? The entire ground shudders beneath them as the dungeon awakens with a bone-chilling roar. Kuroto clutches his head, completely overwhelmed by the violent, chaotic shift spinning around him. Mononobe lunges forward with a desperate cry just as the ceiling begins to cave right in on them. She tackles Kuroto, sliding through the falling debris to drag him out of harm's way just in time. They crash to the ground together, ending up in a breathless, tangled heap of limbs and utter confusion. Mononobe's eyes widen in instant realization of just how compromising and incredibly close their position is on the floor. Blushing, Kuroto scrambles backward, stammering out a frantic apology as he tries to get a grip. Mononobe can only stare at him with an anxious, lingering gaze, her mind still spinning from the sudden chaos. Above them, the dungeon walls keep crumbling down, making it clear that their nightmare is only just beginning. Kuroto stares at the mounting destruction, realizing with sinking dread that his attempt to appease the dungeon has completely failed. He scowls in sheer frustration. All his efforts to calm this place down have ended in absolute, total failure. Why? He demands aloud, desperately wondering why his honest truth wasn't enough to satisfy the dungeon's mysterious rules. Kuroto laments in despair, realizing he has absolutely no other secrets left to offer the Stone Guardian. Watch out! As debris rains down all around them, Mononobe yells that they have to figure out what this dungeon actually wants. They're standing shoulder to shoulder, bracing themselves as the chamber walls literally start crumbling around them. And just like that, Kuroto snaps. With survival on the line, he leaps straight into the chaos. He lunges right at the Guardian, letting out a furious scream as he prepares to strike back. Even the Dungeon Guardian recoils, totally shocked by Kuroto's sudden, aggressive outburst in the heat of battle. But look at Mononobe, she's just watching his wild assault from the sidelines with a calm, amused smirk. Now, she raises her blade, fully prepared to jump in and finish this fight once and for all. She unleashes her secret technique, the White Storm, tearing through the air with lethal, razor-sharp precision. Talk about terrifying. The dungeon creatures recoil in absolute horror as her blade slices right through their defense. Kuroto screams at the fleeing birds, desperate to stop them before they can escape to the upper levels. He yells that they need to split up, but Mononobe is not having it. She insists on chasing them down together. Kuroto can only sigh in defeat, finally admitting his previous plan was a complete and utter mistake. With a warm, knowing smile, she reminds him that teamwork is going to get them much further than going solo. Kuroto grudgingly gives in, telling her to just do whatever she wants as long as she keeps up. They finally reach the 9th floor, only to find a massive crowd of explorers completely blocking their path. The crowd refuses to budge, murmuring in confusion as our duo tries to push their way through. Suddenly, a girl jumps right into the frame, excitedly announcing that she's about to film a makeup tutorial. Kuroto immediately scolds Karara, demanding she stop her constant, distracting antics in such a dangerous place. Karara glares back at him, clearly annoyed by his sudden accusation and his interference in her plans. She fires right back, insisting she never actually hinders his progress, no matter how much he complains every single day. Kuroto is practically in disbelief as he lists their chaotic recent history. I mean, we're talking wild eating contests and utterly ridiculous cross-dressing challenges. It actually makes him wonder, is the dungeon itself actively sabotaging his every attempt to reach the 10th floor? Just as he's spiraling into frustration, Mononobe steps up, cutting right through his thoughts with one very sharp, pressing question. Picture this, she suggests. What if a tricky dungeon mechanism absolutely requires a 2-person team just to get past it? With a bright, hopeful grin, she asks if he would finally agree to work with her. Kuroto falls silent, deeply contemplating her proposal, while she waits right there, flushed with nervous anticipation. Then, with a sudden snap of clarity, he admits that having Mononobe by his side is actually more than enough help. But wait. Karara is standing her ground, completely blocking the path and refusing to let a single soul pass. She snaps right back at Kuroto, declaring there is absolutely no way she'll ever let Makoto step foot into the demon realm. Kuroto just adjusts his glasses, deeply frustrated that their investigation is moving at a total snail's pace. Karara makes one thing clear: she is only helping out because a teacher specifically requested her participation. But here's the mystery: Kuroto points out that students are suddenly being banned from the dungeon for no clear reason. Karara acknowledges it, noting the entire building recently went through a total regeneration, completely resetting the environment inside. You see, this dungeon evolves every few years, shifting its layout to harvest human emotions even more efficiently. Kuroto insists they have to crack the code and find the exact mechanism causing these bans before it is too late. Karara just mocks him, teasingly asking why the big, serious disciplinary chairman is wasting his precious time on such a hassle. But Kuroto stays totally stoic and unmoved, quietly accepting the heavy burden of the task ahead of him. Trust me, the guy takes his duties dead seriously, even when he is stuck handling the most boring, mundane chores. Right then, Mononobe flashes this sly, knowing grin that suggests she definitely has a trick up her sleeve. She gives Kuroto a playful little shove, teasing him for being way too rigid and unable to just let go of his serious nature. Kuroto lets out a frustrated sigh, absolutely desperate to push forward with the dungeon investigation despite all these delays. But Karara immediately shuts him down, crossing her arms to show him his progress ends right here. The surrounding students can only watch the bickering duo, totally confused as to why they're fighting yet again. Kuroto completely ignores their chatter and orders a retreat. Trust me, he senses something is deeply, deeply wrong. Suddenly, a chilling sound echoes from the pitch-black depths, freezing everyone in their tracks with pure dread. A massive beast erupts straight from the void, instantly shattering any peace this dungeon floor had left. Panic instantly sweeps through the group as they realize their worst nightmare is only just beginning. Kuroto stands in dead silence, his expression hardening as he's forced to confront a painful memory from his past. Karara watches him with genuine concern, sensing the crushing weight of the dark secret he's carrying. She struggles to find the right words, her hands clutching at her chest in quiet, anxious apprehension. Finally, Kuroto turns away, his voice heavy with self-loathing as he reveals the truth of his own arrogance. He confesses that, believe it or not, he once possessed enough incredible magical talent to make headlines for his family. Karara listens in sheer disbelief, struggling to process that his past was once public knowledge. Leaning against the wall, Kuroto admits the truth: his reckless ambition is what got his sister hurt. He takes us back to when he was young, boastful, and utterly blinded by his own massive magical potential. His sweet little sister cheered him on, never imagining his drive would eventually lead to a total disaster. Kuroto explains how badly he wanted to attend the research institute, completely oblivious to the tragedy looming ahead. He remembers his sister's innocent dream of becoming a sparkling idol, so blissfully unaware of what was coming. But his arrogance turned fatal when his unchecked magic spiraled out of control, causing a catastrophic accident that shattered everything. She survived that blazing inferno, but those permanent burn scars are his constant, painful reminder of how he failed her. Kuroto is absolutely torn apart, lamenting how his reckless ambition cruelly stole his sister's future and shattered her beautiful dream. But Karara looks at him, questioning if his current obsession with clearing this dungeon is really just a way to pay the bills. He just shrugs it off, calling himself a terrible person, fully expecting her to turn away from him in total disgust. But guess what? Karara reaches out instead, firmly grabbing his hand and refusing to let him wallow in that shame. She completely rejects his harsh self-assessment, pulling him right back to reality and their shared journey. In fact, she praises his courage because facing his past without running away, trust me, he's earned her deepest respect. Kuroto can only stare back, absolutely stunned by her kindness as that heavy, crushing guilt finally starts to shift. He tries to deflect the heavy mood with a self-deprecating laugh, joking that he's turned into a total softie. But Karara presses on, demanding to know what he actually meant when he claimed he could never atone. She wonders if the dungeon refusing to accept his confession actually means there's still hope for him. Kuroto just stares at her, completely stunned that she refuses to buy into his grim, hopeless worldview. Hiding a knowing grin, Karara challenges his logic with a cryptic, clever question about his true intent. Now Kuroto is visibly flustered, protesting that his past crimes are way too terrible to ever offer room for redemption. Karara cuts him right off, insisting that the dungeon rejected his guilt for a very specific, undeniable reason. She demands that he stop dwelling on a past he can't change and finally start looking toward tomorrow. As she pulls him forward, you can see it in his eyes for the first time. Kuroto is actually considering a future beyond his regret. A wave of genuine relief washes over him as the truth hits home. He is no longer fighting this battle alone. Karara leads him forward, teasing him with a smile, telling him he really is something else. She turns back to him with a soft, confident smile, ready for them to tackle the challenge of the 9th floor together. Kuroto readies himself for the trial ahead, feeling a real, unbreakable determination finally taking root. Out of nowhere, a terrifying swarm of winged beasts drops straight from the ceiling. But guess what Karara is doing? She's filming the whole disaster until their companion screams at her to stop slacking off. It's absolute chaos as the dungeon monsters swarm, forcing the group to scramble and make a desperate retreat upward. That's when Kuroto unleashes his ultimate fire technique, completely incinerating the beasts in a spectacular display of power. Karara is absolutely thrilled by their perfect synchronization, totally blown away by how well they fight together. Ever the humble guy, Kuroto just shrugs off the praise, claiming he was only trying to match her own pace. But there's no time to rest. Their ally demands they keep moving forward, even with the odds stacked against them. After a grueling fight, Kuroto and the team finally clear the floor, letting out a massive, collective sigh of relief. Kuroto clears his throat, trying his absolute best to look cool and regain his composure after all that intensity. He turns to Yukaheim and thanks her for her support, but trust me, that sudden moment of intimacy sends a shockwave straight through her. Flustered, Yukaheim immediately scolds him for the sudden remark, desperately hiding her embarrassment behind some playful banter. Kuroto just laughs it off, teasing her right back about how she's usually the one launching surprise attacks. Suddenly, Yukaheim goes completely quiet, her face burning bright red as the reality of the moment sinks in. Kuroto can only watch her, his heart pounding in his chest as he struggles to make sense of his growing feelings. His mind is spinning, and he's so incredibly nervous that he can't even think straight anymore. Terrified that he'll say something completely foolish in this silence, Kuroto finally breaks and speaks up. He blurts out his true feelings in a sudden confession, leaving their entire future hanging right there in the balance. The confession hangs heavily in the air, leaving both of them absolutely stunned by their own boldness. Right on cue, the onlookers around them erupt into wild applause, totally captivated by this adorable display of youthful romance. Kuroto desperately tries to brush off the sudden attention, while his companion just watches them with the warmest, most genuine smile. Talk about a total mood killer. Suddenly, the floor beneath them literally gives way, cutting their romantic moment short with a violent jolt. Before anyone can even react, the couple vanishes into a pitch-black void, leaving the crowd completely bewildered. Then, the dungeon's booming voice echoes through the halls, declaring that the duo is officially banned for prohibited conduct. Kuroto and his partner scream as they plunge through the darkness, watching their entire world dissolve around them. Back above, the stunned students crowd around the empty hole, whispering frantically about this bizarre and sudden disappearance. Kuroto desperately tries to gather his thoughts, his mind absolutely reeling from the dungeon's instant and harsh punishment. Just like that, their path forward is blocked, their status is revoked, and their entire dungeon journey hits a dead end. The rest of the group is completely puzzled, searching in vain for any official rules about what's actually prohibited down here. But then, a cold dread washes over Kuroto as the horrifying truth behind the dungeon's logic finally clicks. Imagine Yukaheim's absolute disbelief when they realize that public displays of affection are strictly forbidden in this place. Later, Yukaheim and her companion try to unwind in a steaming hot spring, talking over that bizarre dungeon incident. She splashes the water in pure frustration, visibly furious that the Academy is choosing to do absolutely nothing about it. She vents to her friend about her tense meeting with the Academy's chairman, who also happens to be her own grandfather. Trust me, the dungeon is getting more volatile by the day, yet the administration stubbornly ignores the rising danger. They desperately need to defeat a boss soon, just to vent the hazardous pressure building up inside. You see, the dungeon feeds on human desire, growing stronger and stronger, while the Academy just sits idly by. Only constant boss subjugations can drain this unstable energy before it spills over into the outside world. Yukaheim insists they have real options, like calling an outside government help to manage this massive crisis. But her grandfather stubbornly refuses to step in, leaving the students completely on their own to face the threat. Yukaheim fumes as she remembers his dismissive attitude, realizing their safety doesn't matter to him at all. Yukaheim is absolutely fuming in the bath, unable to forgive the academy for just sweeping those poor victims under the rug. Mononobe suddenly freezes, her expression shifting as the dark reality of the dungeon's rules really starts to sink in. She admits the chairman actually has his reasons for keeping outsiders far, far away from this place. But hey, she has to admit, the dungeon providing luxuries like this hot bath is a pretty sweet, hidden blessing. Yukaheim doesn't back down, pressing Mononobe on whether her own family is getting rich off this dungeon's insane wealth. Because let's be real, at the end of the day, these dungeons are just giant, unstoppable money-making machines. Mononobe looks back, remembering how her grandfather built their entire family fortune by braving these deadly depths. But Yukaheim isn't buying it. With so many students enrolled just for this dungeon, there's absolutely zero room for excuses. Suddenly, a painful memory of Kuroto flashes through her mind, completely silencing her anger. Meanwhile, Kuroto is out there, totally determined to secure the treatment money he needs through dungeon rewards. Mononobe explains that if the government steps in, they'll strip away every single one of the dungeon's priceless treasures. Yukaheim is left reeling, struggling to wrap her head around the cold, greedy logic running this whole academy. She insists that no amount of profit can justify leaving this dangerous dungeon damage completely ignored. You can hear the fear in her voice as she wonders if she's carrying the weight of this entire crisis all on her own. The students can't help but recall that bizarre, strict system that punishes genuine affection with an instant ban. It's true, they confirm the crazy rumor that falling in love inside the dungeon triggers this brutal penalty. Mononobe points out the sick irony of traps designed to force awareness while keeping the students completely vulnerable. Then she drops the ultimate question: is Yukaheim actually ready for the consequences of falling for someone? Yukaheim instantly blushes, totally unable to deny the massive weight of her own secret feelings. Mononobe brushes off her own risks, but she's seriously terrified this ban will ruin the futures of everyone else. Yukaheim isn't backing down, pressing Mononobe for answers and refusing to let her slide out of this awkward conversation. A soft tap breaks the quiet as Mononobe looks away, completely avoiding Yukaheim's intense gaze. But then, Mononobe leans in close, whispering a sharp question that targets Yukaheim's true, hidden feelings. Boom! Yukaheim instantly turns into a blushing, frantic mess, totally caught off guard by that sudden call-out. She violently denies having any feelings for Kuroto, but Mononobe just wears this cool, knowing smirk. Mononobe immediately calls her bluff, confidently bragging that her intuition is never, ever wrong. Yukaheim hangs her head, her face burning hot as the sheer reality of her attraction starts to sink in. She grips her arm tight, agonizing over whether Kuroto is actually worthy of her affection. Honestly, she confesses she's totally confused. Is this actual love blossoming, or does she just dislike him? Mononobe just shrugs and waves it off, leaving poor Yukaheim completely trapped in her own doubts. But here's the catch: Mononobe warns that if Kuroto finds out about the hidden rules, his serious nature will shut everything down. She pushes Yukaheim hard, asking, does she even understand the weight of her own feelings? Yukaheim retreats deep into her own head, struggling to make sense of the sudden chaos blooming in her heart. Suddenly, a violent tremor violently shakes the entire academy, instantly cutting their conversation short. The earth literally splits wide open as the dungeon starts tearing the school grounds to pieces. Panicked students scramble for safety everywhere as the ground crumbles and massive buildings start to collapse. Yukaheim gasps, realizing this terrifying destruction is another direct manifestation of the dungeon's raw power. She watches in absolute horror as the disaster spills over, directly threatening the lives of innocent civilians nearby. Her eyes widen in sharp, sudden terror as she realizes the true, massive scale of this approaching disaster. But amidst the chaos, Kuroto stands firm, declaring his only path forward is to conquer this dungeon once and for all. Look at Yukaheim scowling, her face flushing red as she desperately tries to make sense of her own chaotic feelings. To escape this incredibly awkward moment, she insists they dive straight into the dungeon right now. But on the 10th floor, disaster strikes. A deadly trap triggers, raining down a relentless storm of arrows. Now Kuroto and Yukaheim are caught right in the crosshairs, forced to face the dungeon's absolute wildest stunt yet. And get this, a sign mocks them with a ridiculous challenge, forcing them to share a single umbrella. This dungeon is completely shameless, pulling out every cheesy romantic trope to force them together. But the stakes get deadly when they realize those raining arrows are coated in a lethal poison. Yukaheim draws her bow to fight back, but Kuroto warns her that attacking will only trigger a poisonous counterattack. Kuroto slickly dodges a flying projectile, explaining that their only real shield is that crazy umbrella. Can they actually survive the dungeon's twisted game of forced romance? They're about to find out. Kuroto just laughs off the sheer absurdity, claiming that sharing an umbrella is a total piece of cake. But Yukaheim is already blushing red, quietly wondering if her heart can even handle a mission like this. Suddenly, a mysterious voice whispers from the shadows, questioning how she really feels about him. Yukaheim freezes on the spot, her cool composure completely shattering as she questions if she can really play it cool. Then, the dungeon's magic forces a replay in her mind, showing the exact moment she leaned in closer to him. Kuroto suddenly pulls her away from a stray projectile, and being that close sends her into a total panic. The two of them quickly realize they're in serious trouble as the dungeon tightens its grip around them. Yukaheim is desperately wondering, can they actually survive this bizarre, forced romantic trap? Kuroto tries to play it cool and regain his composure, but his next words might just seal their fate forever. And then comes the dungeon's ultimate, ridiculous rule. They must share that umbrella if they ever want to find the key. You see, Kuroto has one goal driving him forward. He's clearing this dungeon for his little sister's sake. Yukaheim narrows her eyes, totally skeptical about what Kuroto is actually trying to pull here. Rain pours down as they stand apart, with the dungeon watching their every single move. Yukaheim admits that she wants to clear this place too, for the sake of everyone counting on them. Hearing her honest commitment brings a relieved smile to Kuroto's face. They're in this together. But wait, does that crazy penalty for falling in love actually apply to them? Yukaheim has to ask. Kuroto just laughs, totally confident they're way too incompatible to ever spark any romance. They agree to move fast, desperate to escape any more of the dungeon's magical traps. Yukaheim vows she won't get banned, but trust me, her resolve is already starting to crack. Kuroto snaps the umbrella open, ready to get this awkward trial over and done with. Here's the catch. Yukaheim points out their height difference, complaining the handle is going to whack her right in the head. She insists on holding the umbrella herself, but Kuroto absolutely refuses to let go. Now they're standing just inches apart, trapped in an incredibly awkward silence under that tiny canopy. It doesn't take long for Kuroto to realize they are standing way too close for comfort. Yukaheim is totally panicking, her face burning red as they crowd closer under the umbrella. Suddenly, the dungeon's rain slows to a drizzle, leaving them stranded in an even more suspicious silence. Kuroto can only stare in absolute disbelief as the magical rain starts to completely taper off. They watch the last drops fade away, leaving them completely alone in a strange, dry void. Kuroto is left wondering, why on earth would the dungeon stop the rain only when they're sharing an umbrella? And so, the two walk together under the umbrella, desperately searching for that elusive dungeon key. They pause right here, absolutely determined to clear this dungeon and escape its annoying, magical grip. Kuroto keeps his eyes totally peeled, scanning the dreary school grounds for any sign of progress. They trudge through the rain, and trust me, their close proximity is making every step feel increasingly awkward. Yukaheim squats down to inspect a cluster of stones, hoping she can find a hidden clue. They peer through a window, their eyes widening at the strange sight resting right on the sill. The repetitive nature of the search is clearly starting to grate on their nerves. Kuroto sighs in frustration as this mission just drags on with absolutely no end in sight. Suddenly, Yukaheim spots something, directing Kuroto's attention toward the mysterious object. Yukaheim points toward the window, her hand trembling as she senses a trap. Kuroto snaps the umbrella open, but he inadvertently catches Yukaheim completely off guard with the sudden movement. The canopy brushes right against her, sending a wave of embarrassment through the already tense pair. Yukaheim apologizes for the mishap, though her racing heart makes it so hard to maintain her composure. Kuroto struggles to suppress his own mounting anxiety as they stand pressed together under the shade. Her voice lingers in his mind, turning a simple moment into a major, unwanted distraction for Kuroto. Kuroto snaps right back to reality, desperately trying to convince himself that he has absolutely no romantic interest. The accidental contact leaves Yukaheim reeling, struggling to process the sudden surge of physical closeness. They attempt to steady their breathing, refocusing their limited attention on hunting down that key. Kuroto quickly dismisses his earlier suspicion about the window, hoping to just move on from the awkward encounter. Suddenly, Yukaheim freezes as she notices a peculiar detail on the window that demands their attention. Kuroto snaps the umbrella open, but he inadvertently catches Yukaheim off guard with the sudden movement. Out of nowhere, a sudden blast of magical wind whips through the hallway, throwing both of them into absolute chaos. Through the howling storm, Kuroto rushes to check on her, and trust me, you can hear the genuine panic in his voice. He immediately lectures Yukaheim for being so reckless. I mean, did she already forget the deadly dangers they just faced? Suddenly, a tiny, sharp projectile whistles right past them, signaling that their little shelter is no longer safe. Now, they're pressed tightly together under the umbrella, and you can practically feel their hearts hammering in the close space. Yukaheim clutches her chest, completely overwhelmed by just how close and intimate they suddenly are. Kuroto quickly pulls away and releases her, trying his absolute best to ignore the insane tension hanging between them. Yukaheim just stands there, face burning bright red as she watches him sway, completely lost for words. But then, Kuroto suddenly erupts in a blazing aura of power, leaving Yukaheim absolutely stunned by his sheer strength. A low, frustrated growl echoes through the air as the intense pressure between them builds to a boiling point. Desperate to break free from the suffocating tension of their shared moment, Kuroto suddenly lunges forward. Meanwhile, nearby students are crowding around the dungeon entrance, whispering about why progress has completely stalled. You've got two lazy hunters whining about the lack of easy money after their own failed attempts. Watching them from a distance, Yukaheim silently judges their total lack of ambition and drive. She takes a sip of her drink, already calculating how securing a license will finally bring her financial stability. But she suddenly freezes when those lazy hunters start mocking the elite, top-ranked students for their slow progress. That's it, Yukaheim snaps, fiercely defending Mononobe's relentless hard work against their pathetic insults. The ground literally begins to tremble as she mentally tears them apart for their uselessness and hypocrisy. Suddenly, a heavy step cuts right through the confrontation, changing everything in a single instant. The disciplinary committee chairman steps onto the scene, and his ice-cold gaze instantly silences the air. He confronts those two lazy hunters, absolutely refusing to let their dismissive attitude slide for another second. The chairman lays it down straight, lecturing them that duty is duty, no matter what rank they are. He grabs one of them right by the collar, demanding they explain those insults about his students. Then, with a terrifying grin, he offers to personally escort them straight to the monster-infested 10th floor. Talk about instant regret. The two hunters turn tail and scramble away in absolute panic. The chairman doesn't even flinch, his sharp eyes tracking their pathetic retreat with quiet, icy disapproval. But then, boop. An unexpected finger pokes his cheek, completely shattering his terrifying aura. He actually shrieks in surprise, totally caught off guard by the sudden touch. Yukaheim is loving every second of this, watching him crumble with a playful grin that says it all. She keeps right on teasing him, praising his bold move to defend the students. She looks up at him with a gentle smile, and, honestly, she's genuinely impressed by him. The chairman is still totally flustered, blushing and insisting he doesn't need any praise just for doing his job. He admits he was really just venting his own frustration at those lazy, weak hunters. And here's the real confession, he sees his own past lack of effort reflected right back in them. He recalls the time she stood in his way, blocking his path to that dangerous 10th floor. He clenches his fist, realizing he feels a strange sense of relief, even if he missed his big chance. He knows he's weaker than the top students, but trust me, he refuses to give up. He boldly declares he's conquering that 10th floor today, warning her to stay out of his way. Yukaheim just smiles softly in agreement, watching him closely as she reaches right out. Suddenly, she pulls the chairman right into her space, teasingly whispering that he really has no other choice. She promises him that if they just team up, conquering that notorious 10th floor is going to be an absolute breeze. Our stoic chairman tries his best to brush off her affection, but trust me, he is totally flustered by how close she's getting. Yukaheim just pulls him even closer, teasingly warning him that if a little intimacy throws him off, he's never going to survive this dungeon. He immediately flinches back, practically begging her to stop teasing him and just give him some space. But for Yukaheim, this is her golden opportunity to finally make him look her in the eye and acknowledge she's right there. She lets out a soft sigh, teasingly telling him he's always been way too serious for his own good. He huffs in response, proudly declaring that there is absolutely nothing wrong with keeping up his strict discipline. We flash back to a young boy charging straight into danger to save a crying child, while everyone else is running away in pure terror. The brave little guy immediately checks on the girl, asking if she's okay now that he's made his heroic entrance. Little Karara beams with absolute joy, proudly declaring that Sei-chan is her ultimate hero. Sei-chan completely freezes, his face turning bright red as that adorable praise hits him right in the feels. He mutters that yeah, he's a hero, even though his stomach is suddenly doing nervous flips. When Karara asks what he just said, he totally panics and loudly denies saying anything at all. The crowd watching them can only murmur in confusion as these two keep up their incredibly awkward bickering. Suddenly, Kuroto collapses under the crushing weight of the pressure, and she immediately rushes to his side. She cries out in panic, telling him he's pushing things way too far as he finally crumbles to the ground. Panting heavily, he gasps out that at least they managed to secure the dungeon key. But his vision fades to pure white as he passes out completely, leaving her in an absolute panicked frenzy. Looking at all this chaos, she has to wonder, does he really think he can keep going in this state? Ultimately, Kuroto decides to make a run for it, deciding that some battles are definitely better left unfought for today. Yukaheim stands right outside, taking a deep breath to gather her courage now that she's finally made it. She looks up at the silent house, wondering if she should really be visiting the desperately sick Kuroto. You remember his terrifying collapse, right? That deadly dungeon poison is no joke. Clutching the address tightly, she starts to doubt her decision to use school documents as leverage to get here. Doubt creeps in, and she worries she's just going to be an unwanted distraction to him. Suddenly, bam! She spins around to find Kuroto standing right behind her, demanding to know why she's here. She mumbles to herself, starting to think that showing up out of the blue like this really was a bad idea. Convinced she's just a nuisance, she turns to walk away without saying another word. She lets out a heavy sigh, so disappointed that her only chance to check on him has slipped away. But wait! The door swings open and a mysterious maid appears, demanding to know who this intruder is. Yukaheim quickly introduces herself, praying this mysterious girl will actually welcome her inside. With a polite smile, the maid greets her and asks if she's a friend of Kuroto's. Yukaheim can only stare. Trust me, you'd be confused too. Is this young-looking girl really the grandmother she heard about? The maid teases her with a playful smirk, asking if there's something strange written on her face. Yukaheim panics and bows, while the maid just watches her struggle with a smug, knowing grin. Suddenly, Kuroto bursts into the room, yelling at his grandmother to stop whatever she's doing. But his grandmother doesn't even blink, casually admitting that her cover is already blown. Once they're all seated at the table, she formally introduces herself as the elder Sinokami Hain. Kuroto desperately warns Yukaheim not to let this woman's insanely youthful, deceptive appearance fool her. Hain just puffs out her chest with pride, boldly declaring that she is a master of recovery magic. Hain makes a joke about being a yokai, but trust me, Kuroto learns the hard way that she packs quite a punch. Kuroto snaps back, totally frustrated, while poor Yukaheim just watches the chaos unfold with those wide, confused eyes. Hain leans in way too close to inspect our nervous girl, and, honestly, she's clearly loving every second of this awkward tension. She grabs Yukaheim's hand and acts completely shocked, like she's just uncovered some massive, juicy secret. With the sweetest smile, Hain tells Yukaheim she really needs to go easy on poor, misunderstood Kuroto. Kuroto hits the ceiling in a total panic, shouting at the top of his lungs that Yukaheim is definitely not his girlfriend. Hain just breezily wanders off to make some tea, leaving the two of them alone to deal with all that messy fallout. Kuroto lets out a massive sigh, wondering how his own grandmother can be this unpredictable and bizarre. He turns his focus to Yukaheim, demanding to know the real reason behind her sudden, mysterious visit. Yukaheim is clearly struggling here, panicking in silence as she tries to come up with a halfway decent excuse. Then she turns bright red and shyly confesses that she actually came all this way just to see him. Kuroto is totally flustered now, burying his face in his hands because he just can't handle the embarrassment. Yukaheim lets out a little gasp, suddenly realizing how that might have sounded like a full-blown romantic confession. Kuroto tries to backtrack as fast as he can, awkwardly insisting she only dropped by because he was looking a little pale. He can't help but notice how his grandmother effortlessly purified that nasty poison right out of his wound. Yukaheim glances around the room, and you can tell she's still feeling the weight of that super awkward air. Hoping to change the subject, she asks if he's actually studying recovery magic himself. Kuroto has to admit the truth. Even with all his effort, he just doesn't have the talent for it. His grandmother doesn't let up though, pressing him on whether he's really doing all this just for his sister. Kuroto confirms it, that accident changed everything, and now he's desperate to research every single possible solution. Picture Kuroto deep in study, poring over a rare encyclopedia that catalogs the most dangerous treasures hidden within dungeon depths. He's flipping through those pages, wondering out loud if he's actually holding a literal treasure map in his hands. Yukaheim is locked in on something huge, a legendary medicine that can heal any injury or sickness in the blink of an eye. They both freeze when they spot a detailed illustration of a glowing elixir. Trust me, you can feel the raw power radiating off the page. Kuroto breaks the tension, explaining that these artifacts are so rare that they're basically impossible for ordinary people to get their hands on. Can you believe it? Yukaheim is completely shocked, questioning if these mythical items are really being pulled from their own local dungeon. He nods, confirming that the Academy keeps special replicas of these relics, just to prove they're the real deal. Yukaheim is absolutely floored, finally seeing the dungeon for the gold mine it truly is. She doesn't stop there, though, and starts digging into whether Kuroto only joined the Academy to get rich. He tries to brush it off, but Yukaheim isn't having it. She's not letting him quit on this mission so easily. Then, she slams her hand on the table, looking him in the eye and declaring they're going to hunt down that legendary elixir together. Kuroto tries to be the voice of reason, warning her that finding this stuff is like chasing a ghost and would cost a fortune anyway. But she's completely unfazed, insisting that if there's even a sliver of a chance, it's worth going for it. Kuroto finally gives in, suggesting they might as well grab every other piece of loot they can find along the way. He catches a glimpse of that fierce determination in her eyes, and you can see his tough exterior start to crack. Suddenly, Kuroto can't help it. He lets out a genuine, involuntary laugh at how wild this whole situation has become. Yukaheim just stares at him in total disbelief, completely caught off guard by his sudden burst of laughter. He starts teasing her, calling her out for being a secret gold digger despite that cool, collected act she always puts on. He gives her a warm, genuine smile, finally letting his guard down and letting her really see him for the first time. Yukaheim doesn't quite know what to do, hesitating and looking away as those hidden feelings of hers start to bubble to the surface. Kuroto leans back, his mind wandering back to the dark, lethal depths of the dungeon. Yukaheim holds his gaze, her expression totally unreadable while she processes his obsession. The two are sitting in this quiet room, and trust me, you can practically feel the weight of their goal hanging in the air. Outside, the sun is starting to dip, stretching long shadows all across the quiet town. Kuroto and Yukaheim stand at the street corner, and it looks like they're finally about to go their separate ways. They trade polite goodbyes, but don't let that fool you. Their professional distance is just hiding the real tension. Yukaheim starts to walk off, but Kuroto stops her cold with a sudden, sharp call. She turns back, probably wondering what on earth could possibly be left to discuss. Kuroto stares straight ahead, his voice turning serious as he drops that casual act for a second. Yukaheim flashes a smile, and, honestly, the resolve in her eyes is just as dangerous as his. Kuroto glances at her, and his expression softens into a genuine, playful smile you wouldn't expect. Yukaheim confidently accepts the challenge, promising she'll breeze through that next dungeon run. They're still standing on that corner, and that professional distance is barely masking the tension growing between them. Yukaheim looks off into the distance, finally admitting the truth about how she really feels for him. Kuroto closes his eyes, finally coming to terms with how deeply he actually cares for her. They're standing on the edge of a major realization, and these new emotions are hanging heavy in the air. As they walk away, they both decide to keep it a secret, but can they actually handle this while surviving the dungeon? Kuroto and Yukaheim reach the dungeon entrance, and they are ready to dive into the depths together. Kuroto signals the move, declaring it's time to push further than they ever have before. Yukaheim agrees in a heartbeat, and she is fully on board with his aggressive new strategy. You can really feel the intensity radiating off these two as they gear up for the bottom floor. Trust me, when this duo gets serious, their combined power is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. But here is the thing, there is a lingering doubt, because honestly, they both seem like completely different people now. They finally hit the 10th floor, but suddenly, a thick, mysterious fog rolls in to swallow their path. A massive, creepy statue blocks the way, and it actually demands they hold hands just to get through. Kuroto just scoffs at the whole thing, calling out this gimmick for being lazy and totally redundant. Yukaheim just smiles it off, completely unfazed since they have already conquered this trap once before. Kuroto hides a knowing smirk, his mind racing as he starts to see his partner in a whole new light. But then Yukaheim catches him off guard by openly admitting her feelings are starting to blossom. Kuroto totally reels, and can you blame him? He is already imagining a world where they might actually feel the same. He shakes it off fast though, convinced that he is the only one carrying this heavy torch. The statue looms over them, giving a stern warning that any romantic display means an instant ban. Kuroto crosses his arms, doubling down on his resolve to keep things strictly professional. He can't help but steal a quick glance at her, and honestly, he is really struggling to keep it together. Yukiheim just stands there, radiating this charm that is making his heart race like crazy. He is really agonizing over it now, wondering if a girl like her could ever actually love someone like him. He keeps denying it to himself, terrified that his own self-doubt is just going to drag her down with him. Yukiheim gently steps toward him, instantly picking up on the internal battle he is fighting. Now it is her turn to panic, wondering if Kuroto has finally figured out what she is hiding. She hides her face in total embarrassment, completely paralyzed by how close they are right now. Kuroto literally can't believe what's happening. You can see he's totally overwhelmed by this sudden shift. He tries to regain his composure, demanding she cut this awkward tension right now. Yukiheim isn't having it, though. She snaps back, clearly frustrated as she bows to his cold, professional request. Then, she just lays it all out, finally admitting she loves him despite how impossible their situation is. But she quickly reminds herself that Kuroto's sister is the priority, and she needs to stay sharp. Take a look at the dangerous floor ahead. Yukiheim knows it's her duty to protect everyone here. She hardens her heart, vowing to bury every bit of love and hate deep down where it belongs. Suddenly, she stops in her tracks, remembering that tiny, crucial fine print from their last dungeon run. Trust me, you wouldn't want to be in their shoes. They have to hold hands just to get out of this room. Take matters worse, the dungeon dangles a massive prize, an SSS rank treasure if they finish. Yukiheim just stares at the sign, totally confused by what this rare reward could actually mean. Kuroto gets defensive, realizing the dungeon is actually digging around in their deepest, darkest thoughts. He knows better than anyone that chests like these are never just simple gifts. It's a trap, plain and simple. The dungeon uses these rewards to lure people right into its clutches. Think about it, it tailors the prize to perfectly hit the secret desires of whoever is trapped inside. Yukiheim starts wondering if this treasure is actually the very thing Kuroto has been hunting for. Her eyes go wide when the prize finally reveals itself. It's a legendary, life-saving elixir. She realizes the dungeon is straight up reading their minds, and honestly, that's just devious. Kuroto scoffs at the whole thing, clearly fed up with the dungeon trying to get inside his head. Yukiheim freezes, her face turning to stone as the true gravity of this situation finally hits her. Kuroto decides enough is enough, boldly grabbing the reward for himself instead of playing along. Yukiheim is totally on board, itching to finish this floor and get on with their mission. They reach out to grab each other's hands, finally ready to satisfy that weird dungeon requirement. Can you feel the tension? They're both standing there, bracing themselves for that awkward physical contact. Their fingertips finally touch, and trust me, that simple spark is all it takes to trigger the mechanism. But then, Kuroto just snaps his hand away in a total panic, like he got burned. Yukiheim is left hanging there, looking completely bewildered by his sudden, cold rejection. She doesn't hold back, demanding to know exactly why he's acting so weird about holding her hand. Kuroto is clearly flustered, tripping over his words while insisting it's not what she thinks. But here's the thing, he's terrified that touching her right now is going to trigger something he just can't handle. Yukiheim is losing her patience, telling him he should just go grab Kanguen-san if he's going to be like this. Kuroto is floored by that suggestion, wondering why on earth she'd bring up someone else right now. She's still annoyed, pointing out that the dungeon doesn't actually care who his partner is. With a frustrated sigh, she begrudgingly admits that Kanguen-san would probably get the job done just fine. Kuroto stares at the floor, his mind racing as he desperately searches for the right way to respond. He finally looks up, his face bright red as he decides to just lay it all out there. He tells her he wants no one but her, and, honestly, you can see Yukiheim go completely speechless. She quickly regains her composure, standing tall and smug while demanding he admit she's the only one for him. She's acting like it's obvious. Of course, a model student like her should be the one leading the way. Kuroto is honestly appalled by her massive ego, barely managing to keep his cool while she gloats. Kuroto dodges a bullet there, and, honestly, he can't help but roll his eyes at Yukiheim's total lack of awareness. Yukiheim is just standing there, completely lost, trying to piece together what on earth just happened. You can practically see the panic hitting Kuroto. He's sweating bullets, terrified she's about to confess her feelings. He tries to smooth things over, stumbling through his words while offering to just hit the reset button on their little moment. But then, out of nowhere, Yukiheim slams the ground, sending a shockwave that stops Kuroto dead in his tracks. Can you believe it? Kuroto watches in total shock as the floor literally crumbles beneath them. Yukaheim is fuming now, calling him a total berserker instead of a partner, and trust me, she is not holding back. It's a full-blown screaming match now, and you should see their faces. They are absolutely stunned by each other. Kuroto ends up standing all by himself in the hall, left to stew over how everything went sideways so fast. Then, get this, he suits up in heavy samurai armor, looking ready to take on the 10th floor like it's nothing. Karara can't even hide her confusion. She's staring at him like he's lost his mind with that ridiculous outfit. Without a second thought, he takes off sprinting, leaving poor Kirara scrambling to keep up with his crazy pace. Suddenly, the whole dungeon starts shaking, and the ground beneath them begins to fall apart. They lock eyes, and the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. It's clear they're about to clash. They both huff and turn away, totally over the bickering and clearly done with each other for the moment. Makoto is watching the whole scene unfold, and he's genuinely terrified by the sparks flying between these two. He's left wondering if some unseen monster is tearing them apart, totally missing the real drama happening right in front of him. Kuroto tries to act tough to hide his nerves, but his partner isn't buying it and suggests they just call it a day.